Welcome back to Hollywood Recapped. Today I will recap you the movie 365 Days This Day. This movie is the second part of 365 Days. In opening scene we see at this day, Laura and Massimo are getting married. He walked over to see her before the ceremony had begun, despite the fact that he was not meant to visit the bride before the wedding. But he didn't seem to mind, and they couldn't keep control of each other and became sexual. Olga screamed out when she arrived in there. She informed them that this was outside wedding customs, but they were too preoccupied to notice. Olga and Laura were chilling out later, and Olga realized Laura had restarted smoking. This meant that she was worried about something. Olga inquired if she had informed Massimo of what occurred following the accident. Massimo was a strong and vicious mafia boss, with many rivals. One of those criminals was responsible for Laura's accident, which resulted in the death of their baby. He had no clue Laura was expecting a baby, and she chose not to tell him because she was afraid of what he might do now. She didn't want any bloodshed, and she feared if Massimo finds out, he would kill those responsible for it. The wedding was lovely, and a large number of people had attended the ceremony. Massimo informs Laura that she only has 1 hour to rest, and then he may do anything he wants with her. Laura didn't bother hearing because she had her own intentions for him. She fastened him to a couch, and began satisfying herself with a vibrator even without touching him. She was trying to tease him, and he didn't like it. She eventually unfastened him, and they got on each other. On the other hand, Olga and Dominique were sharing a bathroom. They had something working on, but he had completely disregarded her, all through the wedding today. That's why she was upset with him. He came over to apologize and began showering her with rose petals. The next day, Laura asked Massimo about how she appeared, and he replied her that she looked just as beautiful as the day he first saw her. They both had a great time on their honeymoon. It happened in a beautiful private location. When they returned home, they noticed Olga and Dominique living as if they bought the house. Massimo informed Laura that he had scheduled a getaway for both the girls because he needed her to be away from town, for he had some business deals to be done. Laura was upset because she believes she isn't just some piece of furniture that Massimo can shift around anytime he wants. Later, Olga and Laura are enjoying dinner later, and Olga could notice Laura was disturbed. Olga attempted to cheer her up by telling her that they had a free holiday and could party and enjoy themselves without the guy's involvement. Laura was concerned because Massimo had taken such wonderful care of her, but she had not handled him rather well. Later, when Massimo was at work, she made him a visit, and they had some wild sex. Soon after, he received a work-related call and had to leave. Massimo stated her that their honeymoon was ended and that they couldn't have fun at all times because he had a great deal of work to handle. She became depressed after he leaves. Laura and Olga had a great time on their getaway. They discussed how, as little girls, they never imagined they would get so rich. They were best friends with a tight bond prior to all of the luxury they currently have, which is the reason riches did not ruin their relation. Massimo and his personnel disturbed their lunchtime conversation. He informed them it was time to leave, and Laura disliked how commanding he was. She told him that, despite the fact that their love story began unusually, with him kidnapping her, she gradually grew in love with him. But she will no longer allow him to dominate her and her life. She is his wife, not one of his staff that works for him. Massimo stated that all he did was to protect her rather than to control her. Laura was relaxing on her garden one day when she encountered an attractive guy named Nacho. He was the newly hired gardener. She inquired as to how long he had been employed for her husband. He replied that he had just started working. Nacho was going to walk away because he felt he was ruining her time. Laura claims she is doing nothing and rests all day, while others clean and cook food for her. Doing nothing and being a lousy wife made her feel miserable. Nacho tells her that becoming a nice wife is also challenging. Nacho departs after a brief chat with her. Laura was quite pleased with this interaction. It was Christmas Eve, and Laura's parents and Massimo's friends had gathered at their home. They were enjoying dinner, giving out gifts, and having delicious food. Massimo offered Laura some documents as a gift as he had acquired Laura a fashion company that she would run independently. Laura adored the fashion sector, and he believed she can now work with her own brand. Laura wasn't pleased with all day doing nothing, so he gave her the opportunity to be busy on her own conditions. Laura was overjoyed with her present. When Massimo inquired about his gift, She stated that he will receive his gift later in the night, when they are together. Later, Dominique proposed to Olga at the party, and she accepted. They get engaged, and every person was overjoyed. Laura invited Massimo to a room later that night. There were a variety of adult toys on display. She assured him he could do anything he wanted with her body. Massimo made the most of this, and they spent an enjoyable time together in bed. Laura praised him for inviting her parents and asked about his feelings toward his father. Massimo had no one after his father died, besides the family's old friend Mario, who was in charge of their security. Mario had stepped down following Laura's accident, blaming himself for the tragic event. Massimo revealed to Laura that he, too, has a brother, but he no longer sees him. He avoided her questions and left when she inquired about him further. He refused to speak about it. The next day, Laura and Olga came to her workplace to design outfits for the celebration that night. She was stunning, but despite the fact that they were at a party, Massimo was still conducting business. He had to leave since there was a small meeting. Laura inquired as to if the meet was more necessary than spending some time with her. He didn't reply and continued on his way, letting her alone. Laura felt depressed, especially after seeing Olga and Dominique having such a good time together. She was wondering about when she noticed Massimo speaking with his ex-girlfriend on the balcony. She pursued them into the room and witnessed them hooking up. Laura fled, horrified and concerned by what she saw. She noticed a car coming while she was fleeing. He was Nacho in the car. She requested that he take her somewhere far distant from here. Laura was distraught and didn't want to remain here any longer. As he was going in a few moments, Nacho gave her a ride to his house, where she could spend time comfortably. Laura attempted to call Massimo, but his number was occupied. She immediately phoned her mother, and informed her that she could no longer live with Massimo because of what he had done. She adds that she will be out for the next few days, and so, that her mother should not be concerned. Nacho has a lovely large house on the beach. Laura dressed into his sister's clothes, which she had discovered in the closet. Nacho's sister was expecting, and he was helping her by caring for her. Laura's mother stormed into Massimo's home. She was furious with him and demanded to know what he had done. Massimo had no understanding what was going on, and was unable to connect with her. He deployed his men to find Laura. Here, Laura was having a great time at Nacho's house, and was happy and calm. Nacho's sister and Laura were chilling out, and she persuaded his brother to find himself a girl. She said something like, Laura would be wonderful for him. Laura responded by laughing and questioning what made her believe she was a great choice. She inquired as to how Laura and Nacho met. Laura told her. She chuckled and stated that Nacho was full of surprises. Massimo's former girlfriend had arranged up a meeting with him, and she was now operating for the other group. She claimed that an average and common Polish girl could not adjust to and manage Massimo's lifestyle. She continues, they should forget what transpired between them, and resume their relationship from scratch. If they are reunited, no one will be capable of stopping them. Massimo could feel there was something strange. He had no idea what she had attempted because she was malicious, but he was certain she had a hand in Laura's absence. Nacho and Laura were watching a film, and she was beginning to miss Massimo. She pondered whether there was something amiss with her, or something lacking in her that caused Massimo to cheat. Nacho was offended by her self-deprecation, and stated that any man would be a fool to cheat on her. Arbanska, Massimo's ex-girlfriend, was conversing with his twin brother Adriano. Adriano, not Massimo, was the person who had been cheating on Laura. Laura, on the other hand, had no knowledge about Massimo's twin brother, and assumed it was him. Adriano was worried that Massimo would find out about their intentions. During this time, the man he had recruited to kidnap Laura paid him a visit. Adriano shot him on the spot since he had failed to complete his assignment. Dominique had discovered Laura was living with Nacho. He deployed his men to execute him and get Laura back. Olga was growing frustrated since she hadn't seen her in days. Nobody told her what was happening on with Laura, and she was screaming out at everyone. Laura and Nacho grew closer as the days passed by. They were asleep one night when a man ordered to kill Nacho got in. Nacho was a tough man who killed the goon before he could cause any harm to anyone. Laura was terrified, and she was also skeptical of Nacho. Next morning, she inquired him why someone had broken into the home of an ordinary gardener, and how he could manage all of these luxuries and such a large place. Nacho tells her that his father is quite wealthy, and that he is attempting to be self-sufficient. Laura was humiliated and apologized for the entire investigation. He advised her not to stress and asked her to go somewhere enjoyable and relaxing. Nacho and Laura boarded a motorboat and arrived at a remote island. There were no people permitted here, and they stayed for a long period. She ran into his sister yet again on the beach. She noticed Nacho's father telling something to him, which irritated him. When she queried him about all this, he was very unhappy. He ignored the topic and showed her how to surf in the absence of waves in the sea. Massimo had discovered Laura's location and was on his way to get her. Nacho informed Laura at lunch that she would have to visit his father. It wasn't a big deal because Laura had previously seen his sister, but Nacho said that there will be a significant meeting and Massimo is going to be present there. Laura was taken aback by this and questioned as to who he was. Nacho then reveals that he is the son of a local mafia boss, as well as the fact that his organization and Massimo's gang are opponents. She was brought to the island by his father Will, she inquired. Nacho said that she came here of her own free will and was not compelled. She understood what would have occurred if she hadn't been here alone. Laura was enraged and saddened because she believed Nacho was a wonderful man, and that what they shared was pure love. Nacho pulled her aside and told her that the moments he spent with her and his affections for her were genuine. He truly loved her. Laura wished she could believe him, but she couldn't. She stated that she had made the same mistake in the past and would not get entangled with men like him, who wanted to dominate everything. Nacho drove Laura to the meeting, where two guards met him. They were ordered to bring her to the meeting spot. Laura didn't mind that Nacho was hesitant. She stated that it could not worsen any further, after what had happened. Massimo and Nacho's father were talking. The other gang leaders were unhappy with Massimo's control of the company and wanted him to join up with his brother. He became enraged and stated that his father had spent years working hard and establishing his dominion. If Adriana gets a piece of it, he will destroy it completely. The old man objected to the way he was speaking and warned him to stop him as long as they had his wife with them. Nacho walked in and informed everyone that the guards who had taken Laura had false ID. Massimo and Nacho immediately rushed out of there to help her. When Laura was introduced to Adriano, she began punching him and weeping. She mistook herself for speaking to her husband. But she quickly knew it wasn't Massimo. Adriano revealed her that they were actually twins, but that Massimo had taken everything from him since his childhood. He was clearly intending to kill her. Arbanska had also reached, and she was holding a gun to Laura's head. Nacho and Massimo eventually followed up. Adriano grabbed Laura and pointed a pistol at her head. He stated that Massimo must pick between Laura and his father's empire, and he also claimed that he was the cause of the death of his unborn baby. Laura escaped from him and was shot by Arbanska. Nacho killed her, and Massimo killed Adriano. Nacho was going to kill Massimo as well, but he changed his mind and withdrew. Laura is now bleeding on the floor, and Massimo is holding her crying. And the movie ends here. Let me know what you all think in the comments section below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss the next recap.